Welcome to the Royal Road School of Carmelite Prayer, where at present we are studying an article written by Edith Stein, better known as Sister Teresa Benedicta of the Cross, entitled Love4Love, the Life and Works of Teresa of Jesus. We have been studying Chapter 6, The School of Suffering and the Interior Life, and we will conclude that chapter today. So the effect of Teresa's prayer life was an ever-increasing love of God and of souls. If earlier her natural gifts had had an unusual influence on her surroundings, her supernatural power to love now gave her an almost irresistible force. The first person to experience this force was the priest to whom she confessed in beseech. The power of Teresa's words and her intercession changed this priest, who was living in mortal sin, into a contrite penitent. After Teresa's return to the family home in Avila, the state of the patient, that is Teresa, who was very sick, got so much worse that there seemed no further hope for her life. Teresa lay unconscious for 4 days. The news of her death spread through the city. Her grave was dug at the monastery of the Incarnation. The Carmelites of Avila sang a requiem for her. Only her father and siblings continued besieging heaven, and finally she opened her eyes again. At the moment of awakening, she spoke some words that implied she had seen some great things during this apparent death. During her last days, she admitted that God at the time had shown her heaven and hell. Besides her later work in the order and the saintly deaths of her father and her friend Juana Suarez, as well as her own. As soon as the slight improvement began, Teresa moved back to her monastery at her urgent request, but she was confined to her bed for several more years and seemed to be crippled forever and suffered unexplicable pain. She herself describes the state of her soul during this time of trial. I bore these sufferings with great composure, in fact with joy, except at first when the pain was too severe. What followed seemed to hurt less. I was completely surrendered to the will of God, even if He intended to burden me like this forever. It appeared to me that all I wanted to get was to get healthy so as to withdraw into solitude as my book prescribed. This was difficult in the sick room. The other sisters wondered at my God-given patience. Without Him, I truly could not have borne so much with so much joy. Now I understand how prayer is a blessing. In the first place, it showed me what God's true love was. Next, I felt new virtues developing in me that were still very weak. I never said anything bad about others. Instead, I excused those who were targets of negative gossip, for I reminded myself that I did not want to say, nor even like to hear anything that I would not have liked to hear said about myself. I remained true to this resolution. Sometimes, but not often, I failed to keep it. I advised the other sisters and people who visited me to do likewise. They assumed these practices. It too was soon noticed. It was said that those absent had nothing to fear from me or from my parents or friends. Teresa suffered for 3 years without asking for recovery. We do not know why she now changed her mind. She only tells us that she decided to beseech heaven to end her suffering. With this intention, she asked that a Mass be offered and turned toward the saint in whom she had always had unlimited trust and who owes to her zeal the increased veneration shown him. I do not know how to think about the Queen of Angels, about all of her pains and cares with the little child Jesus, without thanking Saint Joseph for the dedication with which he came to the help of both of them. She ascribed her healing to Saint Joseph. Soon he came to my rescue in very obvious ways. This most beloved Father and Lord of my soul quickly freed me of the weakness and suffering to which my body was consigned. I really don't recall that St. Joseph ever denied me anything. St. Joseph permitted his power and goodness to me to become evident. Through him, I regained my strength. I stood up, walked, and was free of the paralysis. Amen. So the next part of Love for Love that we will study is infidelity, return, God alone, new texts, works for the Lord, and Saint Joseph of Avila. So this article is quite extensive, but gives us Edith Stein's overview of Teresa of Avila. Thank you for following along. May God bless you. Amen.